Hello and welcome to Hippie Hyena. It's a brand new year, 2021, and this video will be all about Abby Shapiro's recommendations for how we might make 2021 a better year for all of us by improving ourselves. Now, I quite like self-improvement, why not? And I'm willing to give Abby Shapiro a chance to see what kind of advice she's got and whether it might truly help us. Who knows? Let's give it a try. Now, she's got 8 pieces of advice. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it all the way through 8, but we'll find out that too.
Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about 8 things you should do in 2021. So I was thinking about videos that I wanted to make as we are closing out 2020. This has been a year, as we all know.
I just love it when she pretends to have human emotions. You know, I quite like Star Trek, and it reminds me of those episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation when Data is trying to sort of imitate human emotions or learn about them. It's just fascinating to watch, to see the way that human psychology, I suppose, may appear to someone from a being who is sort of on the outside of that. And I get that kind of feeling when I watch Abby Shapiro.
So I was thinking about ways that I could improve, because I know that there are a ton of ways that I could be a better person, that I could do better.
Oh, Abby, there are tons of ways that you could become a better person. Perhaps chiefly amongst those is, rather than try to spread AstroTurf propaganda for what is essentially a fascist death cult, you might consider stopping doing that and instead maybe study some history, some politics, and do so from sort of unbiased sources. That is to say, not just by listening to your brother and watching PragerU videos, but actually learning something. But anyway, failing that, let's see what she is in fact suggesting.
As well as just grow and be the best version of myself. That's something that I always want to work on. It's something my husband and I constantly talk about, and it's something that we really try and inspire in one another.
Ugh, yikes. I mean, I'm not going to directly cast aspersions about Abby Shapiro's relationship with her husband, because I don't know them personally and I've never seen them together. But that doesn't sound very good. It doesn't sound very good. It kind of sounds like you're constantly on each other's cases to try and improve, which sort of sounds like you're quite dissatisfied with the person that you're with. I mean, self-improvement's all well and good, but I kind of feel like it has to come from within, not from someone else telling you that you should improve, because then that's just kind of bullying.
And so I wanted to talk about with you guys 8 things I want to incorporate into my life in 2021, 8 things that I think I should be doing in 2021, and maybe you guys can take some inspiration from that. So I'm excited to share these 8 things that you should do in 2021, so let's get into it. The first thing that you should incorporate into your life in 2021, and I should incorporate into my life in 2021, is to give charity. Now, my husband and I do give charity, but going into 2021, we've actually discussed it, and we're going to start tithing. So tithing means that you give 10% of your income to charity, and it's something that is in the Torah. So it's something that we have not yet done, we have not yet been able to do, but this year we really feel like we can and we should.
In a way, not that bad of a start. I mean, I think charity is quite a complicated issue, but I'm not necessarily going to criticize someone for giving to charity or even recommending that people give to charity. That's sort of fine. I think too often charity is used in a kind of hypocritical way to justify the unpleasantness that people do with one hand whilst giving to charity with the other. Like, for example, Jimmy Savile. I think people in the UK are pretty familiar with him. He was a massive charity fundraiser, and one of the reasons which he got away with what he was doing for so long is people were reluctant to criticize him because they were worried about losing out on that charity money. In some sense, you could argue that charity is sort of giving the poor and needy your table scraps, the scraps off the rich people's tables, when really what should be happening is a kind of systemic redistribution of wealth and change to the way we run things that would mean that charity shouldn't really be necessary. I mean, there'll probably always be people who are unfortunate. I mean, you can't make bad luck disappear with politics, but you can create a safety net to help those people who fall in bad times from falling all the way down to the very, very bottom. And really, that's what we should be doing as a species, ensuring that rather than creating these sort of slight ways of assuaging the guilt of the people who can afford to give to charity. And also, to be quite frank, I'm quite sick of the super rich trying to tell people who have got a very low income and are just trying to survive that they should be giving money to charity when they're not paying enough tax. And people like Abby Shapiro and her brother and the people she works for are actively campaigning to offer less help to those in need. So kind of her gesture of charity feels a little bit hollow, you know what I mean? A little bit hypocritical, a little bit meaningless, and I feel like it's not really going to tip the scales in Abby Shapiro's favour, despite it being a nice gesture, perhaps, and maybe even well-intentioned. Those intentions mean basically nothing when she's supporting the system that put the people who need the charity in that place in the first place. It's sort of like stabbing someone and then offering to give them a plaster when maybe you just shouldn't have stabbed them in the first place, you know? Or something should be put in place so they should get free healthcare so it can get stitched up like it needs to be without having to pay through the nose for it.
And I think it's something that all of us should be doing, right? All of us should be giving charity to the organizations that we care about. They all need it.
Well, no, not if you're one of the people who needs that charity because you live in a situation where your government isn't looking after you and isn't doing its job. I mean, obviously this comes from a position of unbelievable privilege, and that's why Abby Shapiro struggles to make anything but the most astroturfed impact into the YouTuber sphere, whatever you want to call it. It's because she can't connect with any of the ordinary people because she's not an ordinary person. She just straight away assumes that anyone listening must be the people who are in a position to give to charity and not in a position where they need it. Which is to say that in her mind, the people who need charity almost don't exist. They almost don't factor at all into her giving to charity whatever, because it's not about them. For her, giving to charity is about herself.
It's something that makes you better. Charity isn't always about the other person and what they need. Of course, that's incredibly important, but it makes you a better person too, because it reminds you that your money really isn't yours. It was given to you by God.
And here's the crux of it. It's not about the other people for her at all, because under capitalism, the system which she tacitly supports, everything is for sale. You can buy anything, in a sense. I mean, you can't really buy anything, but you can buy at least the facsimile of it, the appearance of it, which is all that matters to an AI, like Abby Shapiro. But under capitalism, you can buy being a good person. You want to be a good person? You've got enough money, you can buy being a good person. Just buy it from charities. It's got nothing to do with actually being a good person or actually making a difference in people's lives that you have any compassion towards, because people like Abby Shapiro don't have any compassion towards those people. They may performatively pretend they do, because that's part of pretending to be a good person. But if you really cared about the needy, you would do something about it. That is to say, you would change the situation that put them into the state of being needy in the first place. But people like Abby Shapiro don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because the situation that made those people needy is the very situation that put them into their position of unbelievable privilege. Okay, this is getting boring. I'm going to skip a few.
Number 4 is to challenge yourself to think through and compare arguments when they're presented to you. So what I'm really talking about with this kind of thing is if you're watching a historical show or reading a historical book and it has a leftist skew and it's presenting somebody from history in a certain way, go and figure out and research if that's accurate, if that is something that actually is presented to you without any bias, or if it is being presented to you in a certain way to get you to feel a certain thing.
So what this is basically about is trying to inoculate yourself against the sort of vaccine for right-wing propaganda virus. You know, what she's essentially talking about is a kind of thought-stopping technique. They like to couch it in this way of like, yeah, look into things and, you know, do your own research. But what doing your own research means is just looking up some PragerU videos and watching the propaganda. It's absolute nonsense. What they're saying is, if you see anything that challenges your views, which, if you're a fan of Abby Shapiro, that must happen quite a lot because reality will continuously challenge your views. But if you get presented with some evidence that challenges your views, why not have a search to see if you can find somebody else who's smarter than you who's come up with an excuse for it? That's all this means. Well, to be honest, I think that's just about enough of this. That's about all I can take. And I have scanned through the rest of the video, and it was so mind-numbingly dull. She includes advice like looking after your clothes, and she goes into some anecdote about the cuffs on one of her shirts. It's just petty, vacuous drivel. But then, what do you expect? So what are the hippie hyena recommendations for what you should do to self-improve in 2021? Well, I don't really think I have any, and I'll tell you why. I think self-improvement, although it's kind of a good thing, it has to come from within, and you have to decide about yourself if there's something that you feel you want to improve or not. And most of the time, I think self-improvement is kind of used as a distraction mechanism away from looking at systemic problems in our society, which we really could try to improve. And it's not an answer if you're saying, look, I'm suffering under this horrific system. It's not an answer to say, well, just improve yourself then. That's a load of old nonsense, because you can demonstrate it's a load of nonsense because look at the sort of soulless androids like Abby Shapiro at the top. Do you really want to be like that? I mean, it's clear, obviously, that this isn't a meritocracy by any standard. And if it's not, that means self-improvement, it ain't gonna work, mate. So anyway, I hope you have a happy new year, and I hope 2021 goes better for you than 2020, even if you had a great 2020, as unlikely as that would be. Goodbye.